Thank you for joining us for our latest special presentation on writing romance. We're going to focus on the 5 important scenes that every romance novel needs. And I'm your host, Linda O'Donnell. I'm a Fictionary certified story coach editor, and I'm also a certified copy editor. But most importantly, I am a romance writer, and I am all about the happy endings, the happily ever after. That is like just what I love. I love to read all genres, but boy, I'll tell you what, having that happy ending coming always just keeps me coming back. I already know somebody put this in the chat in case you didn't see it, but our word for that guides us here at Fictionary is thank you, Brandy. It's kindness. And you know, we have to be kind to each other for sure, but we need to be kind to ourselves too. Writing is not easy, and sometimes we look at stuff and go, "Oh, I don't love what I wrote." You know what? You wrote it. Give yourself a pat on the back. It's always good to be kind to yourself and appreciate how much effort you have put into writing. And I love how kind Fictionary is. So, before we dive into the scenes, the first thing I want to do is, are you sure about your protagonist? And your protagonist is that character who has a goal to achieve in your story. If you're not certain about who your protagonist is, I got a couple things for you to consider. Is it a single or a combined or a group? You don't see group protagonists too much in romance, but you do see combined every once in a while. And if you're thinking about what that is, consider the goal and the stakes that your characters have. If they have the same goal along with the same stakes, then it can be a combined protagonist. If they're not, then they're not a combined protagonist. So let me give you an example. There's a book, and we use this in the big course that I do for fiction for romance for Fictionary. It's called The Wedding Date, and the 2 characters in it are Drew and Alexa. But what they both want is they just want to make sure that they're worthy. They want to just be worthy of someone loving them, or they know that they won't find true love. So their goal is to be worthy. Their consequence is they won't find love. So they're a combined protagonist because they both have the same goal with the same consequences. Now, I will tell you, it is unusual. Christina and I are working on a book together on writing romance, and finding a book that has a it's really unusual to find a combined protagonist in romance. They're usually a single protagonist, and you think, oh, but what does that mean about my point of view? Okay. Well, even if you have a single protagonist, you can still have lots of scenes in your book from different points of view. So another example is like if you've watched the Bridgerton series, there's The Duke and I was the first one. Daphne's goal is she wants to get married or she'll never have children. That's what she wants. Her whole goal in life is to be a mother. And then Simon, the Duke, he wants to never get married. That's his goal. Never get married. Avoid marriage like the plague because he doesn't want to have children. So they have like the most diametrically opposed goals that you can have. So it's really a single protagonist because we can only have one. You're tracking one goal for one character in your book. So this is in Daphne's point of view. She has the most scenes where she's the point of view. So that's why we pick her. But you can have, in that book and in most romance books, you've got the protagonist has the point of view in a scene, but then maybe the love interest has the point of view in the next scene. So it's okay, just feel okay about that. Just know that okay, just because I have a protagonist does not mean that they have to have the point of view for every scene. That gets a little bit confusing. So now let's move on. You've got your protagonist, hopefully now. Hopefully I've and if you're not sure about it, go ahead and DM me. I love to talk about protagonists. But now you need a skeleton blurb. Now, I know a lot of you, I've seen your names here. Some of you have been here before, so this is not a foreign concept to you, but you know what a skeleton blurb is. But for those of you who are not familiar with the concept, it's basically this. You take the essence of your story and you boil it down to a single statement. And what is that statement? It's their protagonist, your goal, and your stakes. What must they accomplish? What are the consequences if they don't? So here is an example. Elizabeth Bennet must resist societal expectations and find true love, or she will be a lonely spinster for the rest of her life. Now, in case you don't know, Elizabeth Bennet is the protagonist of Pride and Prejudice. From the beginning, we learn that Lizzie wants to marry for love, even if it means being poor. She is not willing to compromise her desire for a satisfying relationship. She wants true love. And this is really tough considering the conventions of Regency England. You know, there's a lot of pressure to marry for social status and to have that financial security, but she is insisting that she wants to marry for love. Now, if she does not find a partner who fulfills her emotional needs, she's going to live out her days alone. So that's some pretty serious stakes. So, how do you use this skeleton blurb as you go forward? Well, you can use this to help you. Whoops, I didn't mean to do that. Sorry about that. To review your scene. And then if you've already written your manuscript and you're looking to edit and you're looking to see, does this scene work? Look at the skeleton blurb. Does the scene really apply? I have been known to write a lot of scenes where I info dump. And what that means is I'm giving so much backstory, but I'm not really advancing the plot. So I use my skeleton blurb now to go, oh, is this relevant to the actual goal of the story? Not just information, but a goal. So make sure you've got your skeleton blurb, you've got your protagonist, you know what the goal is, and then you can move on and we'll conquer scenes. Now, in case you're looking at that top line there and it says story outlining, and you're a pantser like I am, don't panic at this concept. It is, I promise you, it is okay to think about your story at least a little bit in advance before you write it. And by coming up with your story arc scenes, you're going to have a good idea of your story structure without cramping your creative style. I promise. Like I say, I am a dyed-in-the-wool pantser, but I'm starting to see the error of my ways. So you want to be thinking about your story arc. Think about your characters and the plot and the settings, all those things. And you don't have to have it all, put in a diagram or any kind of chart, but you just want to be thinking about these things. And here's why we should be thinking about these things. If we don't have any structure, we don't have any story. And without the story, that means we don't have a book, which means no New York Times bestseller list or going to book signings or achieving, world domination in romance. So if you just don't get panicky about outlining, but just be thinking about what are the main plot points that you're going to achieve or to think about in your story. So if you are new to Fictionary, you might be wondering, what are story arc scenes? But these are the 5 key scenes that every story needs, no matter what your genre. And why do you need them? Well, when you identify these 5 scenes, whether you're writing them or whether you're identifying them in your manuscript, it gives you the ability to readily assess the viability of your story. And we're going to review this in a minute. The other thing that these scenes do is ensure not only that your story structure is solid, but that your pacing is on target. And today, we're going to focus on what those 5 scenes look like for a romance, because it's a little bit different in romance than it is from other genres. So, no matter what genre you're in, the very first story arc scene is something we call the inciting incident. And typically in this scene, Your protagonist has something happen. Their ordinary world is getting a shakeup. Something happens that changes their life forever. Well, in a romance, this is where the love interests meet. And we typically call it the meet cute. Now, maybe they're meeting for the first time, or maybe they're meeting again after a prolonged separation. It doesn't have to be long, long. It could be 6 months, or maybe it's 20 years. Maybe they were childhood sweethearts. One of them moved away, and then they've just bumped into each other again at a high school reunion. Or maybe they're meeting for the first time and they were in the grocery store and they reached for the same package of broccoli in the frozen food section. There's countless ways to put your love interest together, from the mundane, like reaching for the broccoli, or something outrageous, like in the wedding date, they get trapped in an elevator that breaks down. Or maybe, there's the sky's the limit. You can put them together however you want. The other thing that's important is they don't have to like each other as a result of their meeting. A lot of times in romances, they don't like each other at first. But it could be love at first sight, too. As the writer, you get to decide. You get to think about how you're going to start your love interest on this journey. Will it be a subtle meeting? Or is it going to be something really like in your face? Will their eyes meet across the room, crowded room? Oh, yes. But, maybe they're competing for the same promotion at their company, and that's how they meet. So that could make it a little bit antagonistic from the beginning. But you want this to happen somewhere up till the 15% mark of your novel, because if you get any later than that, then your readers are going to be wondering if it's happening. Are they really these people going to meet? Or so you don't want them to abandon your book. You want them to give them just enough to keep them interested. So the next story arc scene is plot point one. And in a romance, we call this the point of adhesion. There's no going back to the life that they knew before. This is where your love interests actually, or at least one of them, admit that they feel some attraction to that other person. Now, again, they may not be happy about it. Maybe they're focused on their career and they have no time for romance, and they're like, I don't want to be attracted to this person. I've got a job to do. I got to become the CEO. And so they've got this internal conflict over feeling this attraction. I don't want to be attracted to this person. Or it could be maybe that they've experienced heartache and they don't want to go through it again. They just aren't feeling it. Now, of course, depending on your story, they could be super pumped about being, attracted to this person. It's all about your story and your character. But this should happen between 20 and 30% into your story, and to keep your pacing on track. But the kinds of things that can happen here, you just want to show those sparks. You want to show that there is some attraction. So it could be a first kiss, or it could be just some grudging acceptance of the attraction. This is where you can start doing things like employing forced proximity to keep them stuck together so that that attraction kind of grows. This could be at the job, or maybe you could strand them together after their car runs out of gas, or there's a freak blizzard that shuts down the airport, or they both accidentally I don't know, get booked into the last room at a hotel. Maybe they've got a fake relationship going, and that this could be where the attraction starts to feel real. You've got lots of options, but that's what you do here is start getting that real attraction going. So next, yes, I should have hit enter on that. In the middle plot point, which happens around the 45 to 55%, this is where the protagonist decides, this might be okay. I think I'm going to go for this. This is where they go after the story goal very proactively. And it also signals a change in the direction of the story. Now, since we're talking about romance, you've got a couple of choices here. This is where we've got a false victory or a false defeat. So typically, let's say that your protagonist has thrown caution to the wind. and they immerse themselves just happily in this relationship. But they don't realize that some of the decisions that they've made thus far have consequences that are going to rear their ugly head here in a little bit. That proverbial, you know what, hitting the fan at the low point, which is coming. Or conversely, maybe the protagonist says, "Oh, I think maybe this relationship is tanking." So they start to distance themselves. They maybe even start self-sabotaging. They decide that maybe that job that they want is really more important than the relationship. And so they focus on that and they let the relationship kind of fade away. Or maybe they decide that the family diner is more important to save. This is entirely up to you. But things are going to go either really great, kind of false great, or they're going to be lousy. As the writer, whether things go really great or really terrible for your love interest, keep in mind that what the protagonist is doing here is going to lead to that dark moment that always comes in a novel. So here's that dark moment. We call it plot point two, but some methodologies will call it the dark night of the soul, but it should come around the 7 to 80% mark of your book. And what happens here? Well, this is the low point for your protagonist. And in a romance, it usually involves a breakup. Not always, it just is a huge strain. It might not even come from an argument. It could. You might employ a misunderstanding to cause the protagonist to say, "I'm out of here. This isn't working." Maybe they've gotten their wires crossed and one of them thinks the other one isn't interested, or maybe they think they've betrayed them. Or this is where they find out that the family diner, that the developer who wants to buy it and turn it into condos, is actually the love interest. This is that dark moment. Maybe one of them gets transferred to Paris and the distance is impossible for their relationship to survive. It's entirely up to you. But the important thing here is that this scene demonstrates to your reader that all seems lost for your love interest. It seems absolutely insurmountable for them to fix things. And this is what's really great about romance, is that we can throw all this stuff at the love interest, and this is the absolute ultimate bad moment for them. But one of the other things that happens here is that your protagonist is going to get a piece of information that they need to address that goal, that story goal. It can be internal, but it's going to drive the story forward. Maybe after the big breakup, they realize that thing that they thought the other person was doing or was thinking wasn't true, or they've misjudged the love interest, or they've made just some really bad misassumption, and now they're just going, "Oh no, what have I done? I maybe have thrown away the best thing that ever happened to me." So they've got this piece of information, and that's what's going to drive them forward to that next scene, which is, of course, the climax. Yay. So what I love about romance is that no matter how much trouble we throw at the love interests, I know as a reader that I have that assurance that everything's going to work out. And that keeps me going, that sometimes when you just throw stuff at these love interests and you think there's no way that they're ever going to make this work. But in the back of your head, you're going, "Oh yeah, this is a romance. It's going to end well. I don't know how, but it's going to end well." And so your climax is that happily ever after moment, or happy for now. It can be HEA or HFN, but this is what your romance readers expect. You have to make sure that you end your story happily. And typically 85 to 95% in is where you're going to do the climax, because you want to leave a little bit of something something at the end to kind of wrap it up. But the climax this is where you're addressing your story goal. In a romance, I mean, this is no matter what genre, you're always addressing your story goal in the climax. But in a romance, this is typically where your characters declare their love for each other. Now that we've got our declaration of love, you can embellish on that as much as you want. This could, you can have it be an engagement or a marriage or maybe a baby or some other, maybe they go into business together. I mean, you can make it whatever you want, but it's some indication that your characters are now together and they're happy together and they have a future together. This can be whatever you want it to be. If you're more comfortable with a happy for now instead of the traditional riding off into the sunset, then that's fine. As long as we get the idea that your characters are going to be together for at least the short term. We hope for the long term because, like I say, I'm into the happily ever afters myself. You're showing them having overcome all of those obstacles that you placed in their way. And so now your readers are going to just be delighted to see that your lovebirds are settling in together and you've honored the reader's trust by giving them the kind of ending that they expect in a romance. And it'll just keep them coming back for all of your books. And that's again that world domination thing that I mentioned at the beginning. That's what you want. So if I haven't convinced you about the story arc scenes, then let's review them because they're all very important. So imagine that you didn't have the inciting incident. This means that your characters don't meet. So if they don't meet, then there's no story because there's just no, I mean, we can't do it if they don't meet. So you have to have that meet cute, even if it's two characters coming together again after a long absence. Then if you look at plot point one, this is where there's that spark, that attraction. If there's no spark, then your characters are not going to fall in love. So if you leave this scene out, then there's no reason to keep reading because they're just two people that met and they know each other and big deal, right? But then in the middle is so important. And I think the middle is the hardest part to get right. Your protagonist has decided to be proactive to finding love. This this part though signals a change in their attitude, and it's an opportunity to make your readers really wonder about how this is all going to work out. Something in the direction of the story is shifts here. Maybe things are going really well, but you've left some hints that maybe something could blow up. That whole thing where she's trying to save the family diner and the guy that she's interested in, she doesn't know he works for that condo developer. That's something that is like going to blow up. Maybe there's some other secret that hasn't yet been revealed, some complication that's going to derail the relationship. Maybe the protagonist just had a simple misunderstanding about something, but it's causing them to doubt the love interest. So if you don't have the obstacles, the story would be over right here. You would have your happily ever after right here. And that's like only halfway through your book. Hey, I love you. Okay, great. We're happy. No, it's done right here. You can't do that. You won't have a complete story. And plus, we need that low point. Okay. Plot point two, that low point. Well, I know that we hate to do this to our characters, but without them having this insurmountable challenge, then the story would be over also because there would be nothing to overcome. And this scene is so vital because it really sets up your reader for that very satisfying ending. And without giving them this thing to overcome, it's like, the story would already be over. We wouldn't have this thing, and it wouldn't feel so good when they emerge from all that bad stuff. And then the end. The end is that part with just that we swoon. I mean, maybe you guys don't swoon, but I swoon. I love the climax. It's the moment that we've been waiting for. The protagonist achieves the goal. They fall in love. The love interests commit to each other. They declare their love. All is well with the world. And this is what your romance readers expect. And it's what makes them so loyal to the genre. No matter how bleak things look, they know that they've got in their back pocket, there's that happy ending is coming. They know it's coming. So you can make things as bad for your characters as you want, as long as you deliver them out of the ashes and give them that happy ending. One of the things I love about romance is it gives us this wonderful escape from the world. So when I read this, I just know that I'm going to have that happy ending. We don't always get a happy ending in life, but we do in our books. So can you see how all of these scenes are important to the story and they all kind of work together? And there's no reason to feel, scared about at least having these scenes plotted out before you start writing. Okay, so how to get your romance started? Well, if you're a fan of plotting, you can do it. But even a little bit of planning, if you're a pantser, won't put a, I promise, will not put a cramp in your creative style. Find your protagonist. Make sure that you understand whether you've got a combined protagonist or a single protagonist by comparing those goals and those consequences. When they're not the same, you've got a single protagonist. That is what you see in most romances. You can still show different scenes from different points of view, but make sure that you understand what the goal is for your protagonist so that you need that to write your skeleton blurb. This is the goal that your protagonist needs to achieve in the story, along with their stakes. If they don't succeed, what will happen? So you're going to use this blurb to guide you through writing and editing all of the scenes in your story. And we're going to talk about that in other classes that we're going to be teaching. We'll talk about scene level evaluations and things like that. So then you're going to look at those 5 story arc scenes that we've been talking about and make sure that you've got them at least figured out if you're outlining. If you've already written your manuscript, kind of pick out what you think are your story arc scenes and then see if they're kind of spaced out, in the right place. Then the last thing to do is, are your story arc scenes doing what they should? Is the inciting incident serving as your meet cute? Is your protagonist admitting their attraction in plot point 1? Are they becoming more proactive in the middle and taking agency? Are they experiencing either that false victory or false defeat? And then, did you give them a dark moment, some kind of breakup or serious blow to the relationship in your plot point 2? And then, do you have that declaration of love and demonstration of togetherness in your climax? Because you just want to make sure that you're pacing and then you're setting up to that happy ending to deliver the promise that your romance readers really expect. So, coming up in 2025, I am super excited to say that I will be teaching the romance classes again, and we're going to be seeing a few changes in them because, as you can see from the pretty pink cover, Christina and I are writing a book on writing and editing romance. And as we continue to do research for this book, we're going to be incorporating a lot of what we learn into the romance classes. And I'm going to be holding quite a few 30-minute sessions like this. And we're going to have a lot of new material coming. And so just keep coming. Okay, well, thank you all so much for coming. I appreciate it. Like I say, we're going to have another session in January, and then I think the romance class is going to start up again in February. But please come to the Hangouts. Please DM me. I'm happy to answer any questions. And I just thank you all. And if I don't see you, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, whatever, happy holidays to all of you.